Hello, it's me, Paradox Free, and it's 2020. And to start off the year, I have a theory about a game from 2017 called Bendy and the Ink Machine. Bendy is personally one of my favorite games of all time, so I'm going to share this theory with you that I wrote about 4 months ago. Now, some of this is a bit outdated since the reveal and the reveal and information from Bendy and the Dark Revival trailers. Some things have been about outdated, like just Audrey and everything that's been speculated about her. She's got nothing to do with this theory because I wrote this before she was revealed. So, if you don't know, Bendy and the Ink Machine is a survival horror game set in an abandoned animation studio in the 1930s. 30 years later, you play as Henry Stein, a co-founder of the studio that left it to the visionary but ego-driven Joey Drew. You meet a cast of characters, either based on cartoon characters, mostly just faceless blobs, faceless audio logs, hellish carnival hurricane, at least as Wikipedia calls it. But on first glance, the game is pretty straightforward, but the history of the studio goes deeper. That's where the novel Dreams Come to Life comes in. This book gives an insight to the studio while also showing an aspiring young artist named Daniel Lewek, otherwise known as Buddy, struggling to support his family. What if we could find a relation between Henry and Buddy? Not in every way, not in the way that Star Wars fans try to do, but in a meaningful way that affects how we view the story. My first bit of evidence is that artistic ability would run in the family, because the first thing we learn about our protagonist in Dreams Comes to Life is that he's an aspiring artist. He says this: "I wish I could really capture what the Lower East Side was like the summer of 1946. I wish I could draw a picture of it." In this first chapter, and a few later on, we learn that he's learning to be more descriptive through writing. Which is, well, you'll learn about that in the book. I don't want to spoil anything. In fact, spoiler warning, in case it wasn't already obvious. But Henry Stein co-founded Joey Drew Studios, as well as creating Bendy, Boris, and Alice Angel. After Henry left, Joey had to expand the art department just to compensate. He was considered the best artist in the studio. Meanwhile, Mr. Unger, Buddy's grandfather, used to be an art teacher. Unfortunately, being Jewish in Poland in 1943 meant there was a fear of these little people called the Nazis. They weren't important. The grandfather is a confirmed Holocaust survivor. Before he was captured, he had all his paintings sent away to his daughter, or Buddy's mother, because he wanted to protect the soul of his art. Henry Stein, in Chapter 3 of the original game, refers to Boris as Buddy. And there's a lot of hidden scroll on some of the walls throughout when you replay the game after beating it all the way through for the first time. But the idea is that the Boris that helps you out in Chapter 3 is Buddy Lewek. Okay, and that's a theory in itself. But Henry refers to this Boris as Buddy. Buddy is turned into a Boris clone at the end of Dreams Come to Life, and I think the book on Buddy Boris's table is what he writes in Dreams Come to Life. As you learn at the end of the book, he's been writing. This doesn't actually take place in the present day. The book doesn't. Buddy is writing about his past as a Boris clone. And Buddy writes this story for Dot. And that's another character. I need to explain things better. But what do we see next to him when we regain consciousness? A book with a blank cover, as though he filled it with his own story. But why would Henry call Buddy by his nickname if he didn't know him as some sort of relative? Because Buddy never actually met Henry while he was at the studio, and didn't know the Buddy Boris long enough to see him as a friend, let's be honest. Henry could have been in contact with the Leweks, learning about Buddy and his work at the studio. He couldn't speak of Joey's dark deeds because, well, they'd think he was crazy. And at the beginning of Chapter 5, Perfect Alice tells Henry that the scrawl all over the walls of the studio is written by many of the lost ones. However, it is confirmed that the writing is only visible through the seeing tool is written by Henry. And this is the whole Audrey thing. I thought that was confirmed at the time of writing this, but we're going to ignore that. Anyway, this is heavily implied that it's heavily implied that the game takes place in a sort of time loop. But so in Chapter 2, Sammy Lawrence, another character, tells Henry, "You seem familiar to me." But Sammy came to the studio after Joey left, meaning the characters you meet still have fragments of you in their memory, even after each reset. My next bit of evidence is that we don't have a maiden name for Linda, or Henry's wife, or a name or even gender for Irina, which is Buddy's mother's sibling, or Buddy's aunt or uncle. But this is a part of the theory where I use loose ends as a could-be statement, because the family trees of both the Lewek family and the Stein family are so lacking in information that whether or not the two might be related is unclear. But because of that, there's plenty of room for the Stein family. Unfortunately, it means there's no good place to put him in a family tree. This is going to be the shortest little bit of evidence in this video, but I think it's the strongest, because we're talking about relations, and the last name Stein is German/Jewish. I did the research, while the Lewek family is confirmed throughout the book to be Jewish American. This is the most shocking piece of evidence to me, because no other character outside of this theory is Jewish in origin, and given that the circumstances, I think that ties it up neatly. But from a narrative standpoint, this makes the battle at the end of Chapter 4 much more meaningful. Because if you didn't know, the battle at the end of Chapter 4 is with a hulking brute of a Buddy Boris, or your Buddy Boris, or so we think, with giant hands, pieces sticking out, in a hole showing major organs, which the cartoons need organs, and just living ink. But an interesting detail is that the items you collect in Chapter 3 go into the brute Boris. You've got these energy capsules, a bunch of hearts, and you also have to cut up a bunch of Bendy pictures, but I don't know. She just hates Bendy. Which, it just feels awful, though. But the most important aesthetic detail is that it seems the bodies in creatures with souls attached to persist instead of melting into the floor. Which, that does happen at the end of the Brute Boris battle. But that means that the spirit of Buddy was freed from Zinke prison when she did all those unspeakable things to Buddy Boris. And my conclusion? Being related not only connects the book to the games, but it also just makes Chapter 4 that much more impactful. As with any theory, there is missing evidence and holes, but I'm proud of it. I think it's really good. I like it. So, if you don't like it, sorry. Goodbye.